Let's start with a really simple question, though, to get us started. Is selling cybersecurity by shiny technical tools and controls the right way to go about engaging a business and talking about risk?
I think it's one way to go. I wouldn't personally say I think it's the right way to go. The MSPs that are having conversations about risk management prior to the shiny technology are the ones that we find have the most success in the long run because they're talking in business terms and saying to the business, here's your risk, here's how we can help you mitigate that risk. Would you like our assistance to mitigate that risk? And that's an easier conversation to have than we've got this new shiny thing and here's a bunch of technical acronyms and words that you understand. So yeah, no, I wouldn't go with shiny objects first, although they're an important part of the long-term solution. But there's a lot to be said for, basic education and basic knowledge transfer between MSPs, those trusted advisors, and your customers who, are there kind of open asking questions because they want to learn.
So understanding that right way, and it's more the risk and business level conversations. What really is risk management? What are the sort of the key concepts?
Yeah, look, it's actually really simple. I think that it's one of those topics that people approach and go, "Oh man, this is a big topic." We always start our onboarding programs with risk management because it is a core concept of implementing a management system to manage your information security risks. It's pretty straightforward. We sit down, we talk to customers, and we say, "Well, what are your assets? What are your vendors? What does your environment look like? What is the thing that we're worried about here?" And then, you take that and you say, well, what are the bad things that might happen to this particular asset? They're your risks. And then after that, you say, okay, what am I going to implement to mitigate those risks? What can I do to bring that risk from being a really high probability in cyber terms, really high velocity risk, and bringing that down to something that's a bit more achievable and maybe something that I can sleep better at night knowing that I'm trying to mitigate that in some way. And it's less about trying to be perfect and saying, well, here's every permutation of everything that might happen. And you say, well, let's cover off, let's aggregate these risks together and then let's look at them on balance and see what we can do that's practical. That's a process. It's not something you can just rush into and do an hour and then you're away. It's something that you need to sit down and look at and just, plan your way through. But if you can aggregate your risks and come up with kind of 10 or maybe 15, really core aggregate risks that articulate your position. And then you can start talking about, okay, what are we going to do to mitigate those risks? And this is where, when you start talking about attack surfaces and you start talking about bad things that might happen, MSPs, they have a certain amount of knowledge in the technology world. And that's where, they would lean on that knowledge to say, well, here are the things that we've experienced in the past. Here are the bad things that we know will probably happen to your asset. What we find is super helpful is to kind of build on top of that and work in getting some sort of situational-based awareness as well on what are the things that are happening in Australia to those assets that we can overlay on top of that to help give additional kind of context to those risks.
It's a fascinating concept. Just all the examples I think about in my head is that conversation contrasts between what you're talking about compared to just leading with you need EDR or you need email security. That conversation around what's actually going on and you can educate your clients as you're going is way more powerful. What you're describing is more of an ongoing process.